what do you think it is about your characters and your writing that keeps your readers coming back for more? What do you think resonates with them that's just like, oh, that M. Monique gonna drop, or, when's the next one coming out? Like, what is that? What would you
I
say?
think it's knowing that these men are going to be equal parts crazy and sweet.
Oh, who doesn't like that? No, who doesn't like that? Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Mic'd Up Podcast. My name is Kaya. I am an author, an entrepreneur, and a podcaster. And today I am super excited for the guest I have on today. I am sitting with urban romance author M. Monique. Is it the virtual building? How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing good. When I say I'm excited, I'm really excited. I'm excited.
I am too.
All right, so we're going to get right into your bio and we're going to get into your Q&A. You ready?
Yes.
All right. So your bio reads, M. Monique was born and raised in Florida. As a teen, she enjoyed reading and writing short stories. Her love for family fuels her passion to write urban romance stories embedded with strong family dynamics. She published her first book in March 2020 and has since authored over 30 books, with several of those becoming #1 Amazon bestsellers. Also, she is a two-time Literary Gem Award winner and a Black Girls Who Write Award winner. You can find M. Monique on social media platforms: Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. All right, so the first question I like to ask authors when I have them on is what they did before they published. So you say you published your first book in 2020, and before then you were reading,
Yes.
you enjoyed reading and writing as a teen. What was your background before
Right.
you published? What were you doing?
So I was in healthcare. I was in healthcare as a medical assistant for um, roughly 16 years. Longer than that probably, but yeah, I was definitely working in healthcare. Worked started off in the ER and started working in doctor's offices um, until I stopped working in
Oh,
2019.
you
So
stopped.
yeah,
Okay.
so yeah, I stopped working in November. I in November 2019 was the last time I actually worked in an office because I uh, had two major surgeries that I couldn't work after. So that's how I ended up. That's how I ended up here. Because medically I could not go back
Oh,
to
God.
work. So yeah.
Well, how are you?
Hmm.
How are you doing now?
Yeah. I'm making it. I had a have a it's like an infection that you get. It's like an ear infection that progressed past the middle ear and into my skull base.
Oh,
So it is something I deal with on a daily basis. Causes a lot of problems, but yeah. But I'm making it, child. I'm making it.
yeah, for sure. I see. Well,
Yeah.
again, thank you
Yeah.
for being here. I'm glad that you're doing better. I'm glad you're doing well, and I'm glad you're writing
Thank
these
you.
books,
Thank
girl. I'm glad you're writing these books, child.
Look, that was my escape.
So
My escape.
that was actually going to be my next question. Um, it says that you published in 2020, and that was around the time
Right.
of the pandemic, and obviously you were like
Right.
from your surgery. So writing
Right.
became your escape. So did
Yeah.
you know immediately, like when you knew you were going to be out of work, did you say, well, I got to do something? What am I going to do? Like, did it come to you right away?
No, I didn't. I didn't think any of that. What this is what happened.
Mm-hmm.
So when I realized I would have to go to surgery a second time that year. So my first surgery was in January. I think January. My first surgery was earlier that year. Let me just put it that way. And then I had to go a second time in November. So mind you, that was not my only surgeries that year. That was just for this particular issue. And I remember saying, you know, God, if you wake me up from this, I'll do what my purpose is in life. Like, whatever I'm meant to do here, I'll do. Because it, you know, having surgery on your skull is like, it, you know, it's so close to the brain. Like, it's literally, you know, it's very, very in depth and very, very scary procedures. So I was just like, okay, God, because at that point in my life, I hadn't lived up to anything I felt like I should have been doing in my life. Like, I know I was in a place where I was not happy with my life. I wasn't happy with the way I had, you know, stunted my growth, so to speak. And I was just like, okay, whatever, if you wake me up from this, I'll start living my life. That's literally what I said. And around December, that same month, I, you know, got on social media, because I wasn't on social media prior to becoming an author. I was like that person who I just never was a social media person. So
Gotcha.
I got on social media, and one of my good friends that I worked with at the time, she was just simply asking for book recommendations or authors she could read. She and I worked in the same office. We worked in a doctor's office where we all had wherever our doctor worked, that's the area we were in. So she was like down the hall.
Got it.
So I just responded to her message on Facebook, like, hey, read these authors. And one of the authors told me, thank you. And I was like floored, because mind you, I'm just a reader at the time. I don't know these folks.
Right.
So I was very much, you know, starstruck, because I didn't understand how this person who I've read all her books just came on this post and said thank you. So now it was confusing, because I'm like, well, how did she even see my post? Because I don't know this lady.
Right.
And that's when I discovered that my good coworker, she actually was a test reader for authors. And I'm like, all these years you've known me. I've known this girl since the 9th grade.
Got it.
Okay. When I say we used to sit together at lunch, like, you know me.
Right.
How do I not know something like that about you? You know I love to read, but it was literally that simple and that divine that it happened that way. Because then the author started, we became friends on Facebook. So it was just a new thing opened up. It was just done just like that. I don't have any, other type of story to tell, because that's exactly how it happened. So she posted a flyer that she was taking book submissions. Now, this was in December.
Okay.
And I was like, ooh. And I remember telling somebody back in November that I wanted to publish a book. I was like, yeah, I'm writing a book and I want to publish it. But when I saw her flyer, I immediately got nervous. I got scared, and I said, yeah, no, I'm not doing it. She writes really well. I know I don't write like that, and she'll probably think I don't know how to write, and I sound like all these things I told myself. So a couple of months go by, February comes, and she posts her flyer again. So I said, okay, God, let's go for it. And with a whole lot of anxiety, I emailed her my book, and now we're here. So yeah, it's literally the story.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Now, which author was that? Because I think I know who that was back then. Or do you?
A.J. Davidson.
A.J. Davidson.
Yeah, A.J. Davidson. Yeah.
Okay. I was okay. Yeah. I was thinking it was someone else, but that's awesome. So
yeah.
Now the book that you submitted to her, did that book get published?
It did. It's called The Thug Has Feelings Too. It's my
Okay.
first book release ever. And they're currently, all of my older works are down right now because I went independent. So I'll be republishing my books independently starting this month. I did a couple already, but starting this month, all of my older catalog will reappear. We'll go back up
Gotcha.
on the platform.
Gotcha. I understand.
So,
I
yeah.
see authors do that all the time. Yeah. So that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when
Yeah.
so my question is why, well, let me back up. What was her
Okay.
response when she read your book? Because you said you obviously you weren't confident and
You know what I was
initially you
doing.
weren't, and yeah, I'm sure
I
you
was
had
not
your doubts.
confident, and I love the idea of being an author. I
Mhm.
knew that's what I wanted to do with my life ever since I was a kid.
Okay.
I wasn't aware of the I have fun writing books, okay? I don't try to stress myself out when I'm writing.
Right.
But when that first book, when I sent it to her, I only sent her like the first 3 chapters, which is what she asked for.
Okay.
And the response I got back on my birthday, February 28th, I got a response that said, "Girl," with a whole bunch of I's, R's, and L's. And I was like, I was so scared to open that email because at first I didn't even, I didn't see that part. But when I opened it, that's the first thing I saw was "girl."
Oh,
And she was like,
good.
"Where is the rest of this book?" And
Oh, wow.
it's like my whole body just, every like hair on my body just stood up like, oh my goodness, she liked the book. And we talked about it, and she was telling me how great it was and how, I don't know, the feedback I got from it, not just from her, but from the editor at the time, was very, very inspiring because it was my first book. And
Right.
it was my first time actually telling a complete story that is an actual novel, not like a little short story.
Right.
Or
It was your
So,
first long
the
form book.
feedback, it was my first time, and the feedback really inspired me to know and trust. I still get nervous about every book that I write. I still get nervous about stories and things like that. But for that to have been my first book, the feedback was actually very, very, very great. So
Good.
yeah, I appreciated them for that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I'm sure that was a huge boost to your confidence.
It was.
Yeah, so that's great when it happens like that. So my next question I have for you is why urban romance? Why is that your genre of choice? Uh-oh.
I love
you about
this
to tell me
question
something?
so much because listen.
You about to tell me
Okay,
something?
so-
Tell it to me.
As an avid reader, right?
Uh-huh.
I've been reading since I was 16. The first book I read was Before the Dawn by Beverly Jenkins.
Okay.
And that was my first time being introduced to Black romance novels. Okay.
Mm.
I was 16. I kind of read other stuff, but it wasn't like this.
Okay.
And I just remember as I got older, okay, so when I was 19, I believe, I moved to Colorado. And you can imagine walking into a Barnes and Noble or a bookstore in Colorado that you don't see plenty of us, right?
Right.
So I started reading what was available. And a lot of what was available, I realized what my love was. And my love is romantic suspense. I love it. And I love the urban elements of romantic suspense.
Mhm.
So years go by, right? And mind you, this is still coming from a place of I was reading everyone who really didn't look like us, right? When I did find authors who looked like us and who wrote that in that genre, I fell in love because now I have found my people.
You're right. You found your
the
tribe.
Stories that resonate with me. Right. Right. So I read all of the author's books that I did find. But again, this is before the Kindle days, before anything e-readers and platforms that allowed you to have ebooks, right? So, because that is fairly, I mean, that wasn't really around when I was still having to go to the bookstore to actually purchase books.
Right.
So when Kindles and Nooks and things like that came along is when I really discovered the world of Black romance, and authors who write them. That's how I found A.J. Davidson. That's how I found Siobhan Latrice. That's how I found Antoinette Sherrill. That's how I found Kay Renee. You know, it's so many authors I can name, but that's how I found all these people, is because now there's platforms where I can go and just download a book at will, you know. And that only intensified my love for Black romance. And then I just knew I never strayed away from that urban. I love contemporary romance also. It's just something about urban romance though. For me, I love to write. I wrote 2 Christian fiction novels. Those are the hardest books that I've ever written. Hardest. Because there was it's clean, you know, it's clean romance, and it was so complicated. Those are the only 2 books I stressed myself out about, because I'm like, this is not my passion. Is in urban romance. I love doing, you know, I love adding just a dash of suspense in it. Now I do have some romantic suspense novels, but all of them aren't romantic suspense, but I still add that suspenseful element because that's just in me. I love it. Like, I don't know. So urban romance is definitely me. Like, it's just gotta be, I guess.
I understand. So,
yeah,
I get that.
Yeah.
You touched on how getting the feedback from the editor and AJ like really encouraged you to do it. Now, at that point, did you like have the confidence? Did you get the confidence at that point? Okay, so they were telling you it was great. You're hearing that it's great, and you're still not confident. So, what was it that propelled you to just go ahead and go for it and just hit that submit button? Like, what was it? Even though you weren't 100% confident yet.
I had to keep my word. Like, I told God I was gonna do it. You know what I'm saying? Like, in the back of my mind, it's like, if you don't do it now, when are you gonna do it? You keep saying this is what you want, but you don't want to take the step of faith to do it. I had to, like... You had to do it. I had to do it. Okay. I would have still been in the same spot that I was in had I not followed through. Like, I know the situation I was in, I would have still been in that situation. Still. Because change is not easy. Right. Adapting to new things is not easy. But the minute I did, doors started open. The minute I did, situations started changing. Because when something is added to that, especially if it's divinely added, things are starting to be taken away that are not supposed to go on that journey with you. And as time goes by, the more that's been going on, I have a newfound respect for trusting and following. Because I would never go back to that place. Like, never. Like, yeah. Right. So yeah, I had to. Were you surprised by the response you got from readers? I'm going over my book right now because it's being republished, re-released this month. And I'm reading through that book like, girl, what was you thinking? They actually love the book, and I'm just like, oh my goodness, what? But that's because I've grown, and now I
Right.
see where I could have did things differently. So now, yes, so all my re-releases will have tweaks in them because now I see it through a different lens. But the story itself is so great that I can understand, not because I wrote it, but I can understand why I loved it first and why readers loved it, because the story itself is very great. And it's for that to have been my first one, I feel like I told a great story. Like,
Good.
really. Yeah.
Well, I think that you can only write where you are in your life.
Right. Exactly.
You can only go that far. So looking back on your older stuff, how do you feel that you've grown since then?
That's what makes me happy.
Okay.
That's what makes me happy. I realize I've grown. Like, I didn't realize when you can see the proof and when you can see the proof of elevation, it makes you say, I'm actually doing something that I should be doing, and I'm actually taking steps to be better, or to to do better in this thing that I said I was gonna do and make the best of.
Mm-hmm.
Because if my books now would sound like then, I would feel like I kind of stayed stagnant in a sense. But the fact that I can look back and see where I have grown, it really, really gives me, it gave me a lot of hope and a lot of faith that this is what I'm supposed to be doing. Like, that's just like a hairstylist. Like, you have some old school hairstylists who refuse to learn new things, and you have those who are old hairstylists who do learn new things, and you see the progression of how great they have become over time. And I feel like that's the same thing with writers. Of course, our earlier works won't equate to what we write now, because that's the beginning. This is transitional. So that really gave me a lot of newfound love for my pen. Yeah.
So can you give an example of how your writing has grown, whether it's like character, like world building, or character personalities? What has grown?
It is the telling of the story. Okay. So in my first book, I realized that although there is character development, the cohesiveness of the relationship is not as conveyed as it is in my newer books. Because I feel like I wrote scene by scene, but I didn't write those in between scenes that actually show the readers
that builds
these
up
people grown. Correct. So like that, those are things I'm tweaking now the second time around, because I see like the bones of the book won't be changed, the meat of it won't be changed, but the little superficial things that I did not recognize in the beginning, that now I know, like, those little moments matter in a book. Like, it helps you feel like you know these characters. Yeah. So
I call those filler scenes.
Yes.
And I think that when you're writing them, they may not be the most adventurous or the fun things to write, but they do give you more depth to the stories and the characters, and can make them a little bit more relatable. Like, oh, okay, you get this a little bit more now. So I get that. Okay.
Exactly.
All right. My next question is, okay, so I've heard authors say when they first started writing, especially for avid readers, when they first write, they say that they wanted to, in ways, emulate the writers that they fell in love with.
Mhm.
Did you find that you were doing that when you first started writing?
Not really. The only reason I can truthfully say that is because my first book is a book that I've been writing since I was 19. Those are characters I developed when I was 19 years old. The only thing that I think I knew I wanted to do was write some type of romantic suspense, urban romance. And now that I'm doing that, I don't, this is going to sound horrible. I don't read now. I've read probably 2 or 3 books since I've been an author. Because to maintain my authenticity, I don't read. So I support, I buy, I put on my bookshelf. I don't actually read.
Yeah.
I do find that I will at some point go back to reading. But it'll be when I decide to take a break, things like that. But for right now, I like to open my books or for readers to open my books and feel like it's a story true to Monique. And we're in a world, let's just be honest, we're in a world where there is nothing new under the sun. Storylines, somebody can write the same story and not tell the same story. I'm an advocate for that. Like, it's okay. I remember the last group project I did, for instance. The theme that I had in my mind, I was riding down the street, taking my kids to school and listening to Young Jeezy. And and I love Jeezy, okay? And I'm like, ooh, the snowman, and and I'm like, oh, wait a minute. The idea, inspiration just came to me right there. And I was like, I called my publisher and I'm like, listen, what if we do a group project where they're all snowmen, right? And I said, I already know what title I want. So I want Kidnapped by the Snowman, literally. So that's how our group project came about. So we all wrote about snowmen and none of us had the same story. Not either one of us, all 13 of us, none of us had the same story.
Wow.
So this is what I'm saying. Like, even though we all wrote the same theme and the story wasn't the same. And that's okay. Like, that's okay, So it's like, those are the things I say. Like, everybody we can all write about the same thing and not write about the same thing.
Right.
We can tell it a different way. But it's still hard for me to read. It's still hard for me to open a book just because I like for people to open a book by me and say, yep, Monique wrote this.
Right.
Yep, Monique wrote this. I don't know. And I'm a type of person who I overthink anyway. And I don't want to overthink that you looked at anything in my book and said, this reminds me of so-and-so. So Blue, for instance, right? Everybody gave not everybody, but a few readers did say, hey, this kind of reminds me of The Bodyguard. And I'm like, I wrote that whole book. And not one time in my brain did I say,
interesting.
Did I say, I'm going to write this because I love The Bodyguard movie? Because I don't. I think I did as a kid watching the movie, but I haven't seen that movie since I was probably a teenager. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's not one of my go-to movies to watch. My go-to movies to watch be like Bad Boys or
right.
You know what I'm saying? But I knew, but the character Jacoba was in the book prior to Blue. I wasn't even going to write a book about it. But it was the holidays, and I said, you know what? I should do a novella. Let's put Blue in a novella, literally. And 100K later, here he is. Like, he was supposed to just be a little novella.
Right.
Because, everybody, of course, was intrigued by him in Uncovering Love. So I was just going to do a novella and call it a day. Didn't even know who his FMC was going to be. And then something was like, just give him Jacoba. you know. Okay, that'd be cool. Started writing the story. Now 35K turned into 70K, then 70K turned into 80K. And I'm like, what in the world is going on? But he ended up being, at the time, my most successful book.
Right.
So, child, yeah.
Yeah. I wanted to say, Blue was my first read by you.
Okay.
That's when I really started to get into just reading. I had my tablet or whatever, and I'm not a huge TV watcher.
Yeah.
And I started seeing groups on Facebook or wherever, and I'm just looking for Black romance. I'm just looking for Black romance.
Exactly.
When I saw Blue, I didn't know what Blue was because of the cover.
Right.
It was just, blue and a snowflake. And I was like, huh. And I read reviews and I'm like, huh, let me go ahead and try this. Girl, I read that book in like 2 days. In like 2 days, I was like, okay. So then, you kind of go down the rabbit hole.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I became a fan. I was just like so drawn in and intrigued by the story because I hadn't seen any of your work before. It wasn't a recommendation. It was just me scrolling and seeing it. Yeah. And actually, they say you can't judge a book by its cover. And people would probably see that the cover and not even think is Black romance or anything. But that's what actually stopped me and looked. I was like, I see it's a Black author. Like, what is this? So that's what actually got me was the cover. That was my first read.
I peeped that too. I peeped that, and I was talking to my mom about it. I said, what's funny is I believe that yes, people stop for the cover and they stay for the story. I said, but this is proof that we do see things and things are eye-catchy. Yeah. Because a lot of people went in blind. The cover gave nothing away.
I thought that was genius, if I'm being honest. I thought it was.
But that's why, this is why, his book is why now that I'm independent, my marketing strategy does include covers. Because I didn't understand the importance. I don't care what the cover looks like. I'm still going to read it. But I see how when it came to Blue, it literally, it showed me something. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, but then I'm also that author that will get so upset because I'm like, y'all don't understand the books y'all missing out on because y'all don't like the story. Just read the story,
Yeah.
That's me too. So it's like, but I do have, because I'm a simple person. I like simplicity. Mm-hmm. So when I made Blue's cover, I said it's a holiday themed book. I didn't want the traditional, Christmas tree or ornament.
Right.
I was like, what can I do? And then I remembered, hey, I used to live in Colorado, so I'm like, oh, I'm gonna set this book in Colorado Springs. This is gonna be awesome. That's why I enjoy writing that book so much, because it took me back to a time when I used to live there. All the things I enjoyed about living there, how being in the snow was just, and I'm born and raised in Florida, never been in the snow my whole life. But when I moved there, never seen mountains like that, things like that.
Yeah, they get a lot of snow over there.
Man, listen.
They get a lot of
snow on the mountains in the summertime.
Oh, I know.
Oh, yeah. So it's like, I said, oh, why don't I just put a snowflake on this cover? Like, it just gives the hint that it's still a winter type theme book. And that's what I went with. But it ended up being that simpleness won so many people over. And then they got in the store and they're like, what in the heck? Like, so I look for simple still. I'm still that same way. Like, yeah.
Right. Side note question.
Yes.
Born in Florida, was in Colorado. Do you like snow?
I like snow for a season. I don't want to see it like, okay. So I like snow when I'm going to drive in it. I like snow. So I've been back in Florida for 15 years and I still haven't gotten used to the heat. because I was used to it before I went, but now that I'm back, I'm still not used to the heat anymore. There's no humidity there. I remember how much my hair grew while I was there. My hair was like down my back. And I'm like, why did my hair grow so much? But then I realized it's because there's no humidity. Like, it was just so many things I learned living there. Like, I learned how to drive in snow, which I did not want to do.
Right.
But yeah, I wasn't intending to actually stay once I got there. I was just there for a little while, but then I was like, you know what, I'm gonna stay. And I didn't come back to Florida until I got married. So,
gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm. I loved it though.
Yeah,
I loved it.
I just be curious of people who didn't grow up in snow and then they're in it. Like, how do y'all deal with that? Because
it was not a great transition.
I can imagine. I grew up with snow, like snow, like up to your knees snow. And now I'm further south. I'm in Virginia, where, you know, if I see a couple, you know, snowflakes, that's amazing because it really doesn't happen. I love it. I do not. I do not like snow. You keep it.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
keep it.
I like it to look at, but I don't to drive in and to live in and that part I did not like. It was no. Like now I see it,
I don't even want to look at it. You keep all it's done with me. It's done with me. Let me see. Let's see here. So we have been talking about, you know, well, I asked you earlier if when you wrote, did you feel you were trying to emulate anyone? And you said no. So do you feel that your voice was cemented immediately, or do you feel as if your voice has really taken shape over time? So your voice as a writer.
According to, and I will take this from readers, when I said I want people to open the book and know that's Monique, I remember when I wrote Uncovering Love, which is a book prior to Blue, because that was my first true romantic suspense novel. Before that, I was writing just romance with a little taste of it, and I think that kind of made people like, did she write this? Like, I'm confused because Monique da. But by Blue, they realized, oh, this is Monique, and she just kind of, you know, elevated her how she writes. So it really is great that readers know it's Monique,
that they recognize you,
right? So that's where I take that from, because I love and I have very high respect for so many authors that I used to read. And I can tell when I open up a book that person wrote it. To me, there's not another Siobhan Latrice. To me, there's not another Beverly Jenkins. To me, you know, but that's just me because I'm used to reading their work. So it's like, that's a great thing. That's a great thing.
Well, let me ask you this. So earlier you mentioned that you wrote 2 Christian-based novels. Why did you decide to do that?
Okay.
Because that's not your normal voice. Like, what prompted that?
So I am a daily, I live with panic attacks, which has changed my life drastically. I didn't start having panic attacks till about 2016, right? So one day I was in the shower. This is moving past 2016. This is me now. I've written books. I'm an author now. And I was in the shower and something just came to me that, I needed to overcome something that I was going through. So the thing I was going through was, there's a 3-mile bridge here, right? And it stretches from one city to the next little city that's over the bridge.
Okay.
And I had a panic attack going across that bridge while I was driving. I have not driven across that bridge since. Okay, this is the bridge that leads to the beach. So I haven't been to the beach since 2016. Like so many things has changed since having that panic attack driving across that bridge. Mind you, this is a bridge I used to drive across every day to go to work. Okay, so I can do other bridges. This particular one is the one that has me like PTSD, right? So I was in the shower and someone just said, you're going to have to cross that bridge. And I'm like, no. But then I started getting these inspired by these this story. And I said, by the end of this story, I'm going to cross that bridge. I'm going to drive across that bridge, right? Mm-hmm. So there are 3 books. And this all happened while I'm in the shower. I literally got the first, second, and third book and what they were going to be about, what the titles would be, because the titles of the books are called The Bridge. And I literally was just inspired to do it. It was not meant to be anything. It wasn't meant to be anything gritty. It literally is clean romance for those who, because I have people who love to read who don't like urban, and that meaning people who I either went to church with at the time and stuff like that. Like, give them something to read, But The Bridge 1 and 2 are already out. So the third part has yet to be completed. It's written, it's started, but it hasn't yet to be completed. But I have the entire storyline, but it's like knowing when I get to the end of that I have to stay true to what I told myself. So it's like, that's how that came. I was inspired to do it, so I did it. And I really love those stories. But yeah, clean, just I imagine I will do more, but like I said, those are my most complicated books to write. Because it is clean romance, and it was very, 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 very hard.
Yeah. Do you think that it's kind of hard to do it because you know what you promised yourself at the end?
Yeah. And then, that's basically it. And it's finding out. And another thing I learned is carrying a story without the extra. How do you carry your relationship? How do you show people falling in love without all the added stuff that we go through, really experience in real life? How do you... It was just different. Because you can talk about it. You just can't... I'm not going to say can't. You can talk about it, but explaining that on paper without explaining it is very complicated. Like, oh my goodness. Mm-hmm. I used to read Christian romance. And again, it wasn't by anybody by us, because this was at a time when I was living in Colorado. So that's how I fell in love with Christian romance, because I found someone who wrote not just Christian romance, but she writes it in suspense. So it's like, it's romantic suspense, but it's clean. I'm like, how in the world does she even do this? Like, now that I'm an author, I'm like, how in the world does she even do that? Like, right. But she did it so well that you're not even aware that there's no
that you're not missing
extracurricular stuff in there. Like, anyway. Yeah.
All right. So let's see. The next question I have for you is, what is your writing process like? Can you give us some insight on how you craft your characters, your stories, and how long does it typically take you to do a project from start to finish?
Okay, so my characters come because I literally just, especially if it's a family series, I just kind of go based on, I build the family first. And then from there, I try to figure out who's going to be first, what their story is, and how am I going to tell this particular story. And I let everybody else just build themselves. So, because there are, like now, the like with Blue, Like I said, he was supposed to be a novella. And when he turned out to be what he was, I was like, okay, I started thinking about Tiffany and her book. And then once I was done with Tiffany, and Kingston had a brother named August, so I was like, you know what, August, let me redeem him. Because at first I wasn't. At first I was going to get rid of him, but I was like, you know what, no, let me redeem him, get them together. So I just kind of let them start building on each other. I don't really have a process. I know that sounds horrible, but
no, it doesn't.
It's hard for me to outline because I never stick to one. I sleep on my characters. So when I go to bed at night, after I say my prayers and stuff, I immediately go into scene mode. Like my brain switches to books, and I think about, hey, okay, what can they do tomorrow that's going to be something interesting, and I start building the scene in my head before I ever sit down to write it. This is every night. I don't write every day. I don't write all day. And this is partly because of the infection that I have on my skull. It's hard I get dizzy a lot. I also suffer from panic attacks. So looking at a computer screen all day will trigger me. It's just a lot. So I write a couple hours here and there. It's like I just really try to build things before I sit down and write. So that way I'm not wasting my time or sitting there feeling like I'm stuck.
Right.
And I think that helps with writer's block also. It's just sleep on your characters. Like, when you're cleaning up the house,
right?
If I do feel like I get stuck, I will literally find something to clean up. I'll go take a shower. Even if I had one already, I'll go for a drive. Like I just get completely away from it, and I start just allowing my brain to wait for some type of inspiration. But I don't really have a process, and I wish I did. The only ones I have a process for are my novellas, because I very much want them to be in a restricted word limit. So I will outline those and try to stick to those as much as possible. But for the majority of my books, I just wing it.
But that's a lot of authors do that.
Yeah, it's
a lot of authors.
Right.
Yeah, I have interviewed quite a few, and maybe one or two have said they actually do an outline. Like, so many people don't. You just, you do it as you come to you. I think that's a very common thing. And I think that can be considered a process if that's how you do it,
That's true, because I was just about to say, like, I don't even write chronologically. I write whatever scene is most prominent at that time in my brain. So even if it's the epilogue, I write it.
Oh, see, that I can't do. I wish I could write out of order. I've tried writing out of order. I cannot do it. Like,
and I've tried writing chronologically, and it's because I don't want to. I feel like when I do write chronologically, because I tried that with my first book, and that's when I realized, when I was stuck for that couple of days on that one chapter, something just said, go ahead and write the next scene. Leave this, come back to it. And ever since then, I followed that same strategy. And it ended up just coming to me, and I'm like, okay, all right. So you
know what it is with me? This is what I'm afraid is going to happen. If I get stuck somewhere, okay, let me just write a scene that's clear. I'm afraid that when I do go back, I'm going to miss something. Like, it's not going to connect to when I get back. I'm afraid of that. So that's why I don't do it. I'm just like, if I put something in this scene, I forget. That's what the editor is for. But it's just like, for me, I don't want to miss the details. So that's why I think it's like, I've tried to do it, but it gives me so much anxiety to do it.
And that's it. Listen, if it causes anxiety, we already know. And writing chronologically causes me anxiety, because I'm like, man, I know what I want to say, but I can't really write it how I want to say it. And I'm like, just move on to this next one. And then I leave my everything in separate documents. So that way, even when it's on the final document, I still have the separate document over here in case I need to tweak something without messing up the rest of my stuff. And I'm like, man. But yeah, I love my editor because the way she will, hey, you just said this 3 chapters ago. But yeah, I definitely, it helps me though not get stuck because it's so easy to sometimes.
Yeah.
And I just move on. So there's a lot of times, and one of my other processes to learn the characters, this is the only other thing I do. I will sometimes write a intimate scene first, just to get a feel for them, like, and then I build around it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Now, intimate scene, I could see that being written out of order. I could see that.
Yeah.
Maybe I could try that. Try that.
Yeah.
So my next question I have for you is, you say in your bio that your stories are embedded with strong family dynamics, which is one of the elements that stand out to me in your books. I feel like those dynamics are their own character.
Yeah.
Why is it so important for you to include those dynamics?
Okay, so I was raised, right, with both sets of my grandparents. Although my mom and dad were not together, and I never knew my dad. Like, I've probably seen my dad when he was living. I've probably seen him only 4 times my whole life, right? He died when I was 22. And I just think about how his parents still stepped up, to help my mama raise me. And my mom's mom kept me and my cousins on the weekends. So throughout the Monday through Friday, before school and after school, I was with my dad's parents. On the weekends, I was with my mom's mom. Right. Now, my granddaddy on my mom's side passed when I was in 2nd grade, so he was already deceased. But it's just, I have big families on both sides. My mom has like 30-something brothers and sisters, and my dad has about 10. So it's a lot of us. I have like 50 first cousins cousins just on my mom's side. So, and that's just between her and her 9 brothers and sisters, not including any of the other kids my dad had. So I just have a huge family, and I want to give Black readers, a stories that can convey love and Black love in a healthy way. That's not saying that there's no trauma involved or anything like that, because as someone who's read everybody, we all tell the same stories. I don't like when people say, they don't like to read Black romance or anything because they don't want to deal with the struggle of all that. As someone who's read plenty of other writers' books, I can most definitely tell you it's over there too. It's just portrayed differently. So you may find more narcissism over there. You may find more verbal abuse and more things that you won't find over here. But it's all still struggle. It's all still the same. It's all still in the same pot. So I still give drama in some trauma, but I still want to give that strong family dynamic because that's what I came from. And that's what I want people to understand, like, we can have these things. Whether it's co-parenting or just not being in situations where everything is strife, you know. I'm divorced twice. And with my first ex-husband, we are very good friends. We've been friends since I was 15 years old. But we co-parent beautifully. Okay. Now that second one, it's like I don't understand, and this is coming from somebody who's seen both sides of the railroad tracks. So one is a quote unquote street dude, and the other one is a quote unquote church guy. The street dude I ain't never had to worry about. That church guy, yeah, is the one who is giving me this is the one that has given me the most conflict ever in my life, you know. So it's like I've seen both sides, so I know I better understand why certain things are necessary. But like co-parenting with the one who people think should give me the problems, it's never an issue. So that's why I love family, because I know it's possible to have these things. I know it's possible to co-parent without any problems. I know it's possible to get over somebody and not have an ill thing to say about them. Like, it's possible to move on and not have these issues. Even if they got issues, you still move on. You like, you know what? They can talk to themselves in the mirror. Let them have their own issues. You know, you don't have to, you know. So it's just conveying Black love in a different light, in a different, like most of us are doing. It's plenty of us doing it.
Right.
So it's just, I love Black love, and that's what and I love Black family. So, yeah.
Yeah. I think that it's important for us to have those, like you're saying, I think it's important for us to have those families represented in a good light. Because I think for a while, it was all kind of, I guess the belief was that Black romance is all the stereotypical broken home, you know, mother on this, dad doing that, such and such not around. So I think that it's a good thing that more and more I'm seeing the representation of Black family unity, Black families coming together, Black families working together. And I appreciate that you make that a strong theme in your books, because I feel like it's needed. So I appreciate that you do that. So my next question is, in your bio, you say that you have published over 30 titles since 2020.
Right.
Are you surprised at how quickly your catalog has grown? Does that surprise you about yourself, that you've been able to pump them out like that?
I said when I released my 4th book that I didn't know what in the world I was about to write about after that. I didn't know where I was going. I just didn't know. Like, I remember thinking, man, I don't know what else to talk about. Like, I don't know what to say. But then when I started writing that 5th book, I realized I just needed to stop overthinking. But I'm definitely surprised because I was not expecting to be where I am. I literally thought I was just going to publish a book and still be working and still be doing everything else that I was doing at the time, you know, that when I found out I wasn't going back to work, it was like, oh, dang, you know, okay, well, it is what it is.
Right.
But, you know, here I am. Like, I never expected to be where I am. Even when I wake up in the morning, I don't even think about the fact that I've written all these books. I'm thinking about what I need to get done today. Like, man, I need to get such done today. So, yeah. So I don't really take breaks. I do sometimes, but then I don't. My mind is always books. It's always what, you know, scenes and, you know, just trying to build worlds, even if I'm not sitting in front of a computer. So, yeah.
All right. Well, actually, 2 more questions for you.
Okay.
The first one is, what do you think it is about your characters and your writing that keeps your readers coming back for more? What do you think resonates with them that's just like, oh, that M. Monique gonna drop, or, you know, when's the next one coming out? Like, what is that? What would you say?
I think it's knowing that these men are going to be equal parts crazy and sweet.
Oh, who doesn't like that? No, who doesn't like that? Like
I think it's literally
I
knowing
love
these
that.
things.
I love that. You know what?
Yeah.
I think that I'll be toxic because I like that because
I do
somebody
too.
that'll, be ready to snap somebody's neck and then walk right over to you, hold your hand, and be like, come on, baby. Like, that's perfect.
Yeah. I don't have another answer. That's my
Yeah. You know what? I would say that too. I would say that too because craziest, that's perfect. That's a perfect answer for that. Yeah. I would say you're right about it. I would say that. All right. So the last question, one of the last questions I have for you is, I seen you have some stuff coming to audio. Yeah. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Do you have any projects, any other projects coming up that you can tell us about?
So Dr. Bell will be coming out, fingers crossed, November, December. Dr. Bell is, okay, so next year I have a series of 4 brothers coming out. They're adopted, and their names are Humble, Peace, Bragg, and Calm. That's what they go by. And I had already dropped the teaser for them months ago, and I was sitting back thinking of a couple months ago. I was like, man, what it would be like to know. There's one other brother, his name is Kilo, but he was supposed to be my holiday release. I was going to do a holiday theme release, and Kilo was going to be my MMC. Well, because it's going to be a novella, right? I was like, maybe I should give them a backstory of how he even ended up where he is, because who doesn't want a backstory, right? Before the book. So I started thinking, man, it would be nice to just see how all of them ended up where they are, where all of them ended up, why all of them ended up in the situations they ended up in. And that's when I came up with Dr. Bell. So Dr. Bell is the father of the 4 that's coming out next year. So we'll get his story. So he's going to just basically be my next release. Now it's not dark romance, but it does have some dark themes, right? But it's still urban romance. It's not dark at all. I mean, the themes are because of the topics, but it's not like, in my mind I have a Gotham City type backdrop. Like, it's different, but it's still me. And I can't wait because I don't think I was this excited about a MMC in a while. Like, I love August because August is my most cherished. He's like a brother to me. Like, but Dr. Bell is given very much superhero. Like, I don't know how else to put that. And he's not a superhero at all, but it's given very much Batman. Like, gotcha. Okay. But he's a good guy. He's a great guy. But it's a marriage of convenience. I did drop that in my book, on my blurb. It is a marriage of convenience. But yeah, so readers can expect that, depending on how much I have to tweak and all that, late November, early December. They will still get Kilo's book. Also, his book. I got another book, and then I have my 4 next year. So, yeah, those are the books so far. I'm not putting anything else on my plate. Oh, and Stillwater's Part 3. My book Stillwater's coming out next year also. So that's the goal.
Okay,
that's the goal, child.
Yeah, your plate is full for sure. So
it is.
I'm sure everything that you do is going to be fantastic, as it always is. So I wish you much success on your releases, and anytime I can support, I will. So that's great. That's great. That's great. All right, so that is the end of the Q&A. We are going to roll over into the book discussion about